All four PepsiCo brands featuring in Kantar BrandZ's globally most valuable food and beverage brands have seen a healthy increase in brand value this year. Pepsi, Lay's, Tropicana and Gatorade. Congratulations to everyone at PepsiCo on such a great achievement. Joining me now to discuss this success is Stephan Gans, SVP, Chief Consumer Insights and Analytics Officer. Thanks for joining us today, Stephan. Nice to see you.
Great to be with you, Martin.
So I'm going to ask you a very broad question to start with. How do you believe brands add value to businesses?
Well, that is a broad question indeed, Martin, but a good one to remind ourselves as to why we're doing what we're doing in the first place, right? So I think, of course, for me, the first driver of business value that comes to mind comes from the value brands have with consumers or for consumers, right? Brands have the ability to simplify choice, influence choice, and they're a very effective vehicle for purpose, so added value to the product or service a brand is selling. Brands add value to business also through the lens of an employee, right? It's well documented that brands with a strong purpose enjoy better employee retention and morale and even productivity. And finally, there's a very clear set of financial benefits to having strong brands. Brands are levers for growth. Brands, if you think about, there's many brands that you can think about that have been able to, with relative ease, grow into adjacent or whole new categories because of the power that was invested in their brand. So multiple angles from which I think brands have tremendous value for businesses.
Sure, it's very interesting. And as a brand builder yourself, what do you think are the most important things to consider when building a strong brand?
Yeah, so I always start with relevance and authenticity. When I think about what really matters when we're building strong brands, it starts with whatever it is you are trying to sell, whatever it is you are doing, whatever it is you're saying, it needs to have relevance for consumers. As important almost is the fact that it has to be authentic. So whatever it is you're selling, whatever it is you're claiming to be really great at, needs to be genuinely, truly, authentically you. Especially in this day and age, there's no hiding behind fancy talk or snazzy advertising probably anymore. It needs to be authentic. And once you have your relevancy and authenticity established, which is, by the way, not a one-off thing, right? That's an ongoing journey. In the marketplace, it's really about building what we call physical and mental availability, right? It's making sure that you are available for consumers in the right spaces at the right moments, not only physically, but also mentally. So people think about your brand, think about your products, the category that you're playing in at the right moments. And so those four things come to mind.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. And clearly we're living through a fairly tumultuous period of history at the moment. What do you see as the biggest headwinds for brands and businesses in the next couple of years? And how are you at PepsiCo planning to address some of those macro issues?
Yeah, I think it's a challenge for businesses and individual consumers alike to turn uncertainty into opportunity in this phase of our lives. And the first thing, and that is very much also on consumers' minds when you're talking with consumers today, is the impact of all the uncertainty on the economy and specifically on raising prices, right? The majority of Americans is, for example, is very concerned about their wallet, about the fact that prices seem to be rising and that the inflationary pressure in all aspects of life almost is really forcing choices that consumers would prefer not to make. And added to that is from a business perspective is the fact that COVID and all the impact that the pandemic has had has really accelerating the evolution of channels, right? So the way people shop, the way people buy the things they want to have, has really evolved quite significantly. So those, if you want, are two axes that lead to different scenarios about what the future could look like. And so what we're doing as a business is to try and envision what those different scenarios will look like, and what kind of impact they will have on our business, and what, how we can best respond and prepare for those impacts.
Sure, absolutely. No, that makes sense. And you mentioned consumers and customers a couple of minutes ago. How at PepsiCo do you try and ensure that your brands maintain that critical connection with your consumers and customers?
Yeah, that is a true core capability that well, any business should have. For our business, we are in the business of, as we like to say it, creating a billion or billions actually of smiles a day, right? So we are touching an incredible number of people all over the world with our brands and our products. So we are investing a lot of time and energy and resources in listening to what is on people's mind, listening to what is really relevant, listening to the extent to which people do perceive us as authentic and understand the purpose behind each of our brands, and building our understanding to what extent we are successful in leveraging what really makes our brands unique, or in other words, our distinctive assets. What leverage, how successful we are in leveraging those distinctive assets in people's mind. So we are consistently talking and with consumers, listening and learning about what it is they feel and think about each of those dimensions.
Sure. Okay. And you talk about connecting with consumers and listening to consumers. Can you perhaps give us an example or two of, through those conversations, how consumer needs have actually changed in the last couple of years?
Sure. Yeah, I think what is a recent, relatively recent big change is in the area of what we call how home has become truly the hub of people's lives, more than ever before, or at least more than in the recent, say, decades. Again, accelerated by the pandemic for lots of people. The world has shrunk, and their home has become a place not, for a lot more things. In some cases, for a lot of white collar workers, home became your office. But for many other, or most other people, it meant that we were spending more time indoors, more time with our family, and as a result of that, a lot of behavior when it comes to eating and drinking has simply changed. Mm-hmm. And a lot of that behavior change is sticking, right? So we don't see necessarily people going back to the way things were pre-COVID. That's a clear change that is affecting our categories, and not necessarily in positive or negative ways. It is just a big change in consumer life. Another more slow but steady build over the years is a trend towards an increased focus on health, right? So people taking more and more control over their own health, and people also really increasingly understanding how what they eat, what they drink, and to what extent they engage in sports, etc. How that directly impacts their health, not only on the long term, but also on the short term, again exacerbated by the pandemic. Mm-hmm. So those are the top two things that come to mind if you ask me that.
Okay, thank you. And clearly the word insights is critical when it comes to talking to and listening to consumers. Can you just describe for us briefly how PepsiCo goes about actually implementing consumer-driven insights into your business?
Yeah, great. That's something I can talk about for many hours.
I'm sure.
I'll really try hard to be short. But I think the work that my team and I are really focused on is the way I like to call it is to drive consumer centricity in commercial decision making, right? So we really have a role to play to enable the business, and that can be at the macro level with global category leaders, but it can also be in a business unit for making plans with a specific customer, for example, to enable people to really be consumer centric in their ways of working. Now, I always like to say that consumer centricity is way too important to leave to the consumer insights team, right? So so our role is really to enable people with tools, with driving a culture of consumer centricity, and making sure that empathy at scale, as I like to call it, is part and parcel of everybody's daily working life at PepsiCo. What helps is that be consumer centric is one of the core drivers, one of the core imperatives of the PepsiCo way. So the way we like to define our culture and ways of working with each other, the way in which we build our business. Within that, really being consumer centric is front and center in that. So that we're really my job and my team's job is really to activate that culture and make it easy for people to get consumer input at every point in the decision making where it matters.
Of course. And so it sounds as though your teams around the world are generating a lot of insights through those consumer conversations on a regular basis. I just wondered if you could give us an example of where maybe one or two of those insights have led to genuine strategic change within PepsiCo.
Yeah, let me give you a really practical example. I guess my favorite campaign of the last year or so was actually a campaign that started in the UK. It was Walker's Crisp In and Crisp Out campaign, where the business team and again enabled by the insights function realized that it saw that although the Lay's brand or Walker's as it's called as it's named in the UK was doing great overall, the brand was losing market share at a very important occasion in the UK, which is during lunch. And so based on based on that insight, based on that those pieces of data, the team went out to talk with consumers about, okay, so what is it? What are you doing with your crisps during lunch? And what they found is that there's basically, it's not really 50-50, but there's some people eating their crisps in a sandwich and some people preferring to eat their crisps next to their sandwich. And what the team did brilliantly with, of course, and I'm even getting a smile on my face when I talk about it because I think it's very interesting and funny. What they did is they said, okay, we've got a crisp in and a crisp out part of this country, and in a very playful and funny way, they made a campaign around that and created kind of a movement for each perspective. That is for me a great example of an authentic and relevant way for a brand like Walker's to take a consumer insight and turn it into basically engagement with consumers all throughout the country in a way that brings smiles to people's face, which is why we do what we do.
It's a great example. I'm a fan of a crisp sandwich myself on occasion at lunchtime, I must say.
Are you crisp out?
Crisp in, definitely crisp in. So just one final sort of macro question about brand building before we move on. So how do you think the rules, if you like, or the world of brand building is likely to change in the next couple of years? And where do you see the opportunities to almost win the battle against some of your competitors?
Yeah, so I think all throughout society, we see a drive towards personalization and customization, right? So, and at it's almost as if with the speed of light, all of us have gotten used to very high level of personalizations in the services, particularly in the services that surround us, whether it's through streaming services like Netflix, or whether it's through, when it comes to getting a cab through Uber, or finding exactly what you want through Google. We're very quickly used to a very high level of personalization, and I have zero doubt that that is now transferring into the product and fast-moving consumer goods brand space as well. So that I see as a huge opportunity, but also with its challenges for companies like PepsiCo to make sure that we are that we retain what we're really good at, and what the competitive advantage we've built over the years is to take, for example, events like the UEFA Champions League or the Super Bowl, American football in the United States, and turn that into massive events that appeal to millions and millions of people. That is still going to be interesting and relevant for many, for the vast majority of people. But at the same time, that same vast majority of people wants their product exactly the way they want it, and they don't want to see an ad that you or I think is funny necessarily. They just want to see the ad that they think is funny, and they expect a brand to know what they like and what they don't like, and of course that is increasingly possible. It's increasingly possible to tailor products, to tailor communication, and even channels, so way people can get their hands on brands and products to the exact individual needs and wants of consumers. So that is a major focus for capability building in our business, in our company. When it comes specifically to consumer insights, the main opportunity and challenge I see is the switch from validation to prediction, right? So I think this whole industry has been very focused on I call it rear view mirror wisdom, right? It's like, okay, we can see what happened last month or even last week or even yesterday. Well, great. Um, the industry has developed a lot of muscle in the area of validating whether something is probably a good idea to do or not, an ad or an innovation, etc. Um, really predicting consumer behavior and being spot on when it comes to predicting success of an innovation or success of a piece of advertising, that is increasingly possible. But it is a relatively new, not only a new set of capabilities, but it's also a new way of working. So there's a lot of cultural change that needs to happen in big companies, or big and small companies, to shift that mindset of validation to a mindset of prediction and accepting forward-looking tools and forward-looking statements in the commercial decision making. So those are two key things that come to mind, that I think are going to drive your and my agenda in the years ahead.
Great, that's really interesting. So we're going to finish with a few questions on sustainability. Clearly a very important topic and a very high profile topic in the world generally, but I just wondered if you could tell us a little bit about PepsiCo's sustainability agenda. What do you see as the biggest challenges for your business in that space?
Yeah, great. I'd love to. So our sustainability agenda is, it starts with the vision that we have as a company, right? We want to be the global leader in convenient food and beverages with PepsiCo Positive. And PepsiCo Positive is our is the label we've put on our comprehensive sustainability strategy. And as you can imagine, a company the size of PepsiCo, where we're a portfolio of brands. There's 300,000 people working at this company. We serve more than 1.5 million consumers a day. There are so many areas where we can and must have a positive impact on the environment, and we've bucketed them in three key areas. So we talk about positive agriculture, positive value chain, and positive choices. with positive agriculture, it kind of speaks for itself. It's really about focusing on regenerative farming, local sourcing, and with the scale of our businesses, as you can imagine, nobody buys more potatoes in the world than PepsiCo, right? Normally, and so just as one example, so there's a very significant impact we can have on all those millions of acres of farmland that are used for potato farming. Um, and so that the positive agriculture set of activities plays in that important space. And positive value chain is really about the way we manufacture and just being smarter, much more efficient, much more effective when it comes to conserving energy as we've ever been. And then of course it is all a lot about packaging as well, right? With those billions of servings of products comes a lot of plastic, right? And we're obviously very aware of the fact that we need to reduce the burden that puts on the planet significantly. And so recycled PET, recycling of packaging, just to name two things, are crucial enablers for the health and growth of our business.
Hmm.
And finally, positive choices, right? So positive choices is really about making it as easy as possible for consumers to make, basically to make the environmentally sustainable choice the right choice. Whether it's about um, reduced sugar or zero sugar or reduced sodium type of products that are better for the health of people, but as well as being better for the planet. Those are those are the three key drivers of our sustainability agenda, and for each of these drivers, of course, have hundreds of specific initiatives and hundreds of KPIs that we are very comprehensively measuring and also reporting. Um, so the world can see the progress we're making against the very ambitious targets that we've set in this space for ourselves.
So clearly at Kantar, we talk to lots of clients, and one of the big challenges with sustainability is making that sustainability agenda meaningful to their customers and consumers. How are you approaching that at PepsiCo?
Yeah, I recognize that challenge very well, Martin. I think the fact of the matter is that this gets you quickly to what is typically referred to as the say-do gap, right? So consumers are quick to agree with the positive intent and the benefits of all sorts of sustainability related initiatives. But consumers are also quick to point out that they don't want any of the measures that we're taking to compromise the taste of their product, to compromise the convenience of the products, let alone raise the prices of the products. And that's not a problem at all as long as it's clear, and it is, right. So that is clearly puts the briefing on a company like ours to be very resourceful in how we're, without all too drastically changing the product performance and or the price, how we can really drive sustainability initiatives in a way that has meaningful impact, and that is very very possible, but a tricky balance. So the relevance to consumers and the connection with consumer preferences in this space is incredibly important. And look. This goes all the way, a full answer to your question would go all the way from ongoing sensory testing and very closely monitoring performance in market of more sustainable alternatives, all the way from there to more brand building type of initiatives that really try and connect consumers with what goes into the product and building understanding of how consumers can make a difference and can help us to make a more sustainable choice in their day-to-day life. So an example is we call it the Farm to Smiles product, where we're connecting consumers, and we're doing this in a few markets in Europe as well as in North America, connecting consumers with potato farmers, for example. A lot of consumers don't really realize that potato chips are made from potatoes, right? So that is, and it's actually really helpful to reestablish that connection. Um, uh, at the end of the day, the benefits of sustainability type of initiatives at scale need to be intrinsic in the products. They need to have so it needs to be about packaging that is recyclable or environmentally friendly in other ways, right? So instead of plastic bags for snacks, can we find alternative packaging that just evaporates or can be reused? We need to make sure that the right choice, the more environmentally friendly choice, becomes really the easy choice for consumers. So that can go for a zero sugar product, it can go for a baked Lay's or a baked Walker's crisp, but it also has to do with nudging consumers towards those products at when they have a choice of multiple beverages at a fountain, for example. So there's a lot of different ways in which we are working hard to make that connection and drive the environmental benefits in the core of what those products are doing for people.
Mm-hmm. And you alluded to this earlier, but we're also hearing from our clients that there's a challenge around somehow measuring progress against your sustainability agenda. So I just wondered again if you have any examples from the work you've done so far in this space of progress in certain areas and how they are being measured and reported, for want of a better word.
Yeah, so we have a very extensive set of KPIs, and I mean what gets measured gets done is the saying, right? So and that is very core to the culture, the business culture at PepsiCo as well. So anybody who's really interested in that should go to I would encourage people to go to our PepsiCo website, because there's nothing what I say right now can do justice to the amazing work that you can of which you can find hundreds of examples in our PepsiCo Positive sustainability reports that are on our website. Look, again, the progress we are driving, it varies, and of course it's for each of these buckets that I referred to earlier: positive agriculture, positive value chain, and positive choices. It varies significantly. But to start with the latter, positive choices, we see tremendous and even still accelerating growth in our zero sugar beverages performance. Every time, like whether it's through Pepsi or Gatorade around the globe, taking sugar out and replacing it with natural but non-sugar based sweeteners continues to be an incredible driver of growth for us. So that's a very easily measurable example of progress that we're making. And in the spirit of making the healthy choice the easy choice, there's a lot we can do to keep that momentum going, right? You can nudge consumers when they take a drink at a fountain, for example, when they choose a snack in a supermarket aisle. You can nudge people to baked Lay's instead of fried Lay's, or to poppables type of products that are not fried but produced in a way that doesn't even use fat, versus other products. So there's a lot we can do and are doing to drive that type of impact.
Well, Stephan, some fascinating insights there for everyone. Thanks so much for taking the time to talk to us today.
My pleasure.